This computer. Well, good evening, and I would like to welcome everyone to this segment of Pushing Forward. I'm here with my friend and fellow advocate, Cheri Hofmann. Welcome, Cheri. I wanted to let everyone know that tonight's episode and for the rest of the month is hosted by Ocala Harmony Dental. So that is our sponsor for this month of June, and we want to thank them in advance for their sponsorship. I am going to let Cheri introduce herself, say a little bit about both of her sons and herself, her reactions, um, and you'll get a chance to get to know Cheri better. Okay. Thank you for joining us tonight, Cheri.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. And my story probably goes in two different directions, as I told you. I have lost two sons to two stigma-related deaths. One of them lost his life to fentanyl, and my other son, my oldest son, I lost him to death by suicide. And I don't even think that what leads to any of these is the same reason. I mean, I know mental health has a big play with suicide,
Mhm.
and I do believe that my son had some mental health issues that he was working through, but there's just no bells and ringers telling you that, I'm going to kill myself tomorrow. I mean, I spoke to him that night.
Mhm.
He was not in the best of spirits, but we got through the conversation. In fact, I finally had to tell him, go to sleep. I got to go to sleep. And so there were no warnings that he was going to take his own life. On the other hand, with Quinn, he died by fentanyl poisoning. And we had lots of warnings prior to losing Quinn because we went through now Quinn had no drug issues until he got out of the army. And he was in a Humvee accident in Iraq
Mhm.
through a landmine of another Humvee in front of him that hit their Humvee. And anyhow, he injured himself. And he was eventually medically retired from the military. But he had serious back issues. And at that time, the Veterans Administration was handing out opioids like they were candy, sweet tarts for everybody.
What year
And
was that, Cheri?
19, no, I'm sorry, 2008.
Mhm.
I'd have to go backwards. And if we,
Right.
I mean, it was a long haul. And you know what? I'm so bad at dates. It was probably 2018. But when he started getting all the opioids from the Veterans Administration hospitals, however, then we had that instant pause with the opioids. I don't know if you remember that. Anybody that was on pain medications immediately started channeling into all the states saying, you can't have any more. Now we're
Right.
going to send you to pain management clinics. Well, that put a lot of people, especially a lot of veterans, into a tailspin. They had no idea they were addicted to them until they could no longer get them. So many of them started seeking self medication on the streets, trying to medicate themselves to feel better and, just buying street pills. And I did not know it, but Quinn started doing it. Um, I have both. I would tell anybody as a challenge for me was to have to read both their coroner reports because I will never do it again. I read them once, put them back in the envelope, and I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. I wanted to see what was in their blood at the time that they died and I wanted to know how much fentanyl did Quinn have? Did Kenny have alcohol or drugs in his system? Um, so as for Kenny with the suicide, did we know? No. Did we suspect that he was having depression and definitely dealing with marital issues and not feeling like a good father anymore and there are other situations that are very personal in nature that he was dealing with. But I mean, I knew the whole situation. Um, Kenny was my 6 foot, almost seven, burly bear hugger. He was a tall human being, but he was as gentle as a giant. Quinn was about 6'4", and they were the best of friends. They had the same passions in life when it came to recreational type things. They both liked to fish. They both liked to go boating and rafting or anything outdoorsy. They were both very outdoorsy. Um, they didn't. They were the best of friends all through their childhood, and when Quinn started backing into different corners here. When Quinn started self-medicating, I think what happened was is the street pills ended up not being enough. Now, again, I did not see this happening. I mean, and I wasn't wearing blinders. I literally did not see him in addiction. I mean, until I got a phone call that said that he was in an emergency room and he had OD'd.
Hmm.
Um, I hightailed it to that emergency room and somehow he got out of there. And I spent the next 2 or 3 days looking for him. But I found out that from him, because it took a little doing, but that he had already succumbed to heroin. And he was now not with the needle because Quinn was terrified of needles. He didn't
Yeah.
even have a tattoo on him, whereas my son Kenny had tattoos everywhere. Um, so I didn't know he was in full on addiction until he was arrested for a Walmart robbery, and he was a doppelganger. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
He looked very much like the guy that did do the robbery.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But however, we had already bypassed one court, and I had did some quick stepping and got him in a thing called Veterans Court. Veterans Court, of course, is exclusively for veterans, and
Mhm.
it was set up here for judges to, there was a judge in Pensacola and one in Fort Walton, and these judges would look at what led that veteran to his court. Well, what led him to that court was the charge for the Walmart uh, robbery, and he did find out that Quinn had a drug issue.
Okay.
So I had written a letter to the judge prior to this court saying he shouldn't be put in jail. He needs to be put in a recovery mode. You need to have him transferred to a recovery center, let him recover as an addict.
Hmm.
And it didn't take long of Quinn missing 2 or 3 of his check-ins with that judge that the judge gave Quinn two options: jail or you're going into recovery.
Hmm.
Not because he was using, because he was clean, at least to the scans, but he ended up getting Quinn into a 17-month in residential treatment program. Please
Okay.
don't ask me dates because they're all blurred. All
It's
these
okay.
lines are blurred. But Quinn went into this residential treatment program for 17 months. At this time, he had the support of his brother. He had the support of me. He had the support of his sisters, his grandfather. The whole family was standing there in super support for Quinn to come to get clean. He did do 17 months in Pathways for Change in Pensacola,
Okay.
and he came out of Pathways for Change completely clean. Um, I mean, he had found church again, he had
Hmm.
found friends again. But he was in Escambia County and he couldn't live with me then in Santa Rosa County. So he moved in with his sister. He had 12 months that he had to spend on a probation
Hmm.
after leaving the recovery center. And he lived with his sister who lives in Escambia County. And we had Quinn back. I mean, had got his muscle tone back and he was happy and so we thought we were there until that 12 months ended. And immediately within days of that 12 month, the first thing he did was get a beer. And from the beer, it led to alcohol. And from the alcohol, he just started spiraling out of control again.
Hmm.
Until I said, "You're coming to live with me." And so that's going back to Kenny, kind of what I asked Kenny that night that he called me and he was spiraling out of control. I said, "Why don't you come stay with me for a little while? Or is there something else you'd like to do?" And then he got into topic about going back to Missouri or Illinois, seeing his friends, his family out that way. And
Okay.
I thought, oh, well, we're on a good roll again. I mean, we've got one that he's talking to me about, he wants to change the scenery. And once I got Quinn living with me, he was living with me for probably about a year. And then he met another girl um, that the first girl that he met that got him involved with heroin, I'm going to go backwards, is in
Okay.
prison. She's still in prison. She was caught with one of the largest busts out here. You might have seen it in the paper when you lived out this way and not where you're at the current moment. But she was in one of the largest fentanyl and opioid busts out here in the Santa Rosa County. There were four of them, and they all went to prison.
Okay.
I believe she's in a halfway house now, getting ready to come out. Okay, so she was gone, but he met this other girl who I didn't meet. He'd only been seeing her about a month, but until Kenny's funeral. And she showed up at Kenny's memorial, and she was a pretty gal. I thought, oh, okay, Quinn's met a nice girl, and she came across very nice until she wasn't anymore. And I saw things happening on my Ring camera where they would have arguments on my stoop, or he'd come flying in the driveway and she'd come flying in behind him. And I found out through others that she was an addict.
Okay.
And I think her whole desire to get in Quinn's corner was because he was a veteran. He had a steady paycheck
Mm.
and he could get her the things that she wanted if he married her. And she started saying, "That's what we're going to do. We're going to get married." And I said, "You just met him. How are you going to tell me that you're going to marry him?" And at my son's memorial,
Right.
you know, you know, but she was all at that memorial how she was going to marry Quinn and they were going to go off into the sunset. I didn't really catch on until later when the fights I could see on my Ring, my security camera and everything. So Quinn had one big knockdown drag out fight with her on my porch one night. And I finally said, "You know what? You need to change the scenery. Your brother is no longer here. I can't get him to come get you and take you fishing or put you on a boat. I think your dad is struggling." And we had a fairly good relationship, the ex-husband, the stepmother. Um, so I said, "Change the scenery time. You're going to go see your dad."
Hmm.
And that was in the end of 2022 because Kenny had not been gone but 3 months. And so I sent him to Missouri to live with his father for a while, which he opened armed, wanted Quinn there because, that's his son and he had already lost one.
Right.
And that's what we constantly said. We cannot lose another. We cannot lose another. Please, whatever you do, if you start feeling like you're spiraling out of control, he was still recovering at this time, but he was still clean. He was not
Yeah.
using. And we would have seen it now because we saw it and now we knew what to look for.
Right.
And his father worked in a hospital. He said, "I will take you out there every day and have you tested if I have to."
Hmm.
So, what happened was about 1 month later, into the fourth month of him being there, Quinn decided that he wanted to stay there a while with his father, and he put in to buy a house. And I was in shock. He wasn't coming home. He was wanting to buy a house out there, but I was supportive. And through all the paperwork and all the things, everything that took place, and mama helping him out with all that, he was a homeowner within 2 weeks. He
Okay.
found a house in Missouri and was a homeowner. Well, guess who found out?
The
The
girl.
same girl.
Yes.
So she began ringing his phone saying that, well, she had put another boy, another man into OD here, and he was in a coma, and there were people after her.
Oh,
Listen,
wow.
she's a black widow. She was always there when somebody was ODing, and she was always saving lives. There's so many stories that I could tell you about this gal, but she convinced Quinn that she needed rescued, and Quinn was a rescuer.
Of
He was
course.
going to save her, not himself. He was going to save her. So he drove all the way back here to Navarre and picked her up and they got a U-Haul truck and they were moving her into his house in Missouri. And somewhere in Alabama, Quinn OD'd.
Oh, wow.
She threw him at an emergency room with no shoes, no shirt, no wallet, no identification, and took off in that U-Haul and left him there. And I guess once Quinn had enough Narcan in him and everything and came conscious again, he called me and he called his sister and he said, I made a mistake. I fell off the wagon.
Yeah.
I'm in Alabama. Lisa took off with the truck and
Holy moly.
I'm in a world of hurt. And I said, well, I don't know what to tell you to do right now. Let me get hold of your dad and see if he wants to drive to Alabama and get you. And then apparently she rang his cell phone somewhat in between all this and said that she was on her way to go get him. She drove that U-Haul to his house. I mean, she had already mapped it out. She knew where to go. I mean, I couldn't fathom how he couldn't see what she was up to.
So
Anyhow,
she dropped him off in Alabama and went on to Missouri.
she went on to Missouri and went into the house that he just bought. How she even, I couldn't even understand. Even
And left him for
Jackie,
dead.
nobody can figure out how
Wow.
why didn't she stay? And you want to know
Right.
why? Because I'm going to go to the next why. Because come to find out, she had contacts in Missouri, one
Oh,
of them being a very large street dealer of fentanyl and Adderall, which she was an Adderall addict and something. She liked uppers and downers. When she was up for a whole day, then she needed something to come down on. Come to find out, her cousin was seeing one of the fairly largest drug dealers in the little township that Quinn had bought his house in. And she eventually moved him into Quinn's house, which I didn't know any of this was
wow.
yeah. Anyhow,
Now, was
she,
Quinn living in the house
yes,
when the drug dealer moved into the house?
yes, yes. But Quinn thought, oh, okay, it was his cousin's boyfriend. Her cousin's boyfriend. He was going to be the nice guy. He had an extra room.
Mhm.
And Jackie and Brian were livid. And they just said, this is getting out of hand. People are going to start getting nervous about the kind of people that are coming onto his property.
Yeah.
I mean, she did go back to the hospital and get him. She did drive him back, but and everything was calm, except 3 weeks later, Quinn OD'd again. This time, oh, the angel was able to revive him and got him to the hospital, got the paramedics and everything. She said, I saved his life. And no, she didn't. She didn't. She would have loved for other things to happen, which eventually it did. But then, so they got Quinn back to the house again after this OD. And of course, I'm having the everyday conversation with him. Quinn, she's got to go. She's got to go. She does not She's not good for you.
Right.
Something's going to happen. I feel it in my bones. Something's going to happen. I would say, I can't lose you, Quinn. And Quinn would say, oh, Mom, everything's fine. I love you. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going to lose another son. I love you, Mama. All the way up to the night before he died. Those were his words to me at every ending call. I love you, Mama. Nothing's going to happen. It's all okay. Until that last call, he said he'd had enough of her too.
Mm,
And I thought, okay. So I called Jackie and we both started working our ways through phone numbers, getting him back into a veterans clinic,
mhm.
getting him back into recovery again because he wasn't an addict again. He was just using again. His addiction had taken back over. So
Right.
I guess yes. I mean, always an addict, right? I didn't know those words until I know them now. But on the seventh month of Kenny dying, I got another phone call that would put me to my knees. How could I lose one son and then 7 months later, my heart break again and I get a phone call that Quinn died. And the fact is she lied to the paramedics. She said she had just spoken to him an hour before that. She told the cops that, oh, he must have done heroin. There was no heroin in his bloodstream, by the way. It was fentanyl and I think Xanax and a couple other pressed pills. It was
Right.
one of those pressed pills of the mixtures of,
Mhm.
and they're not chemists. They don't know what they're doing.
Right.
The guy that was living there was the person who was pressing the pills. Then she tells the paramedic, well, Quinn was helping him press the pills and everything, and all of this was just hearsay and lies until the coroner told me that Quinn had been dead about 5 to 6 hours before she called the
Oh, wow.
paramedics. Yes, she told the paramedics, I just spoke to him an hour ago. Lies. You couldn't have. And the coroner said that he was physically moved. There's a thing called modeling of the skin or muddling or modeling.
Mm.
And you can tell if a person lays in a certain position so long deceased, and then they're moved because the blood flow goes all to
Okay.
that one area. Well, the coroner said he had been expired for quite a long time. 5 to 6 hours is what he said was his window.
So was
And
she in the house with his
she was in the
body
same room with him. Yes.
while he was deceased?
I think that she woke up in between this because she was also using.
Right.
I think she woke up, found him deceased, got the guy that gave her the pill, said, we got to do something quick. You got to get all this stuff out of here. You got to hide. I got to call the police. She emptied all his bank accounts. She took TVs off the wall. She literally was prepared for the worst. And then she
Wow.
hid, I can say his name now, Chris. She hid Chris so that the police didn't really see them. And the police figured, oh, she said he used heroin. He's a drug addict. And,
Right.
they just left it at that. Um, so
Not that he was
mothers,
a dealer as well.
yeah, I
Right.
mean, she just figured, the police just attached that to people, just like Kenny's suicide. I still believe that there's something more to it, but the police said just another suicide, and they wouldn't even let me near him. It was all crime taped off. I was because I was not. He was married. He had a wife,
Yeah.
and they said she is the only one that can see him, not you. And I'm like, anyhow, so 7 months later, I lose Quinn, but come to find out, thankfully, his father and his mother was able to get enough things like his phone, his computer, his iPad. Um, they were able to tell her she had to get out of the house. It was, and she said, "Well, I own part of this house. I've lived here for the last 3 or 4 months, however long it was she stayed there." And she's like, "For real? You really think?" I mean, she even put that she was a widower on her Facebook page. She
Wow.
wasn't even married to my son, but she became his widow. I'm going to go to the karma in a bit because we figured one day karma was going to come and get her, and it has. I found out that she was arrested in October, she was arrested in November, and she was arrested in April. The October and November one, the charges were not felony, but they were enough that she had to go to court. She got
Mhm.
probation and fines. The one in April has felonies. So I believe that her time has come because what she did after all of that, and we got her out of the house, and we just said she could just keep everything because we weren't going to fight her over any of the TV or any of the things that she took. Which, sorry excuse for a woman she was, but we needed somebody to tell us where Chris was, and so did the police, and we got the DEA involved. And I should say more, Jackie was the one pounding the pavement in Missouri for me
Okay.
and her dad. And we got a fairly good detective, and then we got a really good DEA agent. And so he not only went to court on a state level and was sentenced, he went to court on a federal level and he pleaded guilty and he got 16 years with no parole, which is he's in prison now, in state prison, and 4 more years or something like that. He goes to federal prison,
Oh,
and
wow.
he has to do 11 years in federal prison, and no chance of parole. So I mean, it's more than a lot of parents get. A lot of people get. A lot of moms go, they don't know who got the pill, how they got the
Right.
pill. And that was the issue with the court case with this fella because we, the DEA and the Department of Justice, who are one and the same, could not put the pill from his hand into Quinn's hand. All the text messages led that she had the pill and she put it in Quinn's hand. So technically, she's the one that really killed Quinn because she gave him a pill that in the text message she goes, "Oh, it's just going to make your back feel better." She did not say
Mhm.
it's loaded with fentanyl and it could kill you. Um,
And
but
so then that leads, actually, that brings clarity to the fact that he wasn't the one, as she said, he was pressing pills with Chris. He wasn't. It because she had to convince him to take the pill. It's going to make your back feel better. So he didn't know about that.
it was all in the text messages that we
Hmm.
were able to recover text
That's
messages. We were
great.
able to recover the few months of what was going on in that house and Quinn, again, being such a nice person, was just letting it happen until the night before he finally said, "Mama, I get it. I get what you're saying. I'm gonna make her leave." And I said, "Do not fill my head with things. You need to do this, Quinn.
Yeah.
It needs to happen." So I think that I don't want to, I mean, go, I know there's blame to be had here because Quinn definitely had that guy with the pills in the house. Uh, and what a temptation for a guy that is recovering or
Yep.
trying to
Battled
recover.
addiction. Hmm.
I think that Kenny's death was very much a family issue, and that big teddy bear just couldn't take it anymore.